Hello everybody and welcome to the penultimate round of the 2021 GP4 Formula E Offline Championship. We are here at the Dubai Autodrome in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai for the penultimate race of the season. I am your commentator for the day, JW97, and I'm joined today by the host himself, Yuri Marta.
Hello, it's me, you have a god.
Indeed so. We are here at Dubai for the penultimate race of the season, where, as expected, both championships could be decided. Of course, Santino Andreoli has his first shot at winning the title this week here in Dubai, and of course, Audi have their third attempt to try and win the team's title as they failed to do so in the previous two races. The team's championship I will be keeping posted during the race, of course, but the driver's title, you will see the criteria for that after this qualifying session, because again, anything can change during this qualifying session. Of course, the championship cannot be decided in qualifying, it can only be decided potentially in the race. In terms of the criteria, it all really depends really on what happens in qualifying, because if any of the four main rivals get to pole position, it could change the criteria a little bit for Andreoli to try and win the title. But anyway, we're going to get going with this qualifying session. The second time that Formula E has raced around here at the Dubai Autodrome, and it looks like that Nguyen Minh Quan is going to be the first driver out on track in the DS Techeetah now then. As we get going here, there's a lot of loud volume. In fact, I think it might have something to do with the fact that there were people requesting for the volume to be a tad bit louder during the top class stream we had at Mexico this past Wednesday. But anyway, Quan now then just going around the long swooping right-hander. There are a few more cars you can see on the mini-map on the right-hand side coming out. One of them we just saw briefly there being Rafael Demal, who's just come out onto the track. Now, the last time we were here, of course, last season, it was a championship deciding race here in 2020. Whether that will happen again this season, we'll have to wait and see, because it does again involve an Audi driver, because here, of course, Bavono had a very, very comfortable lead in front of Alexander Arnold. Obviously went on to win the championship after Arnold basically bottled his chances of saving his title chances by going off the track and rejoining dangerously into the path of another car, which ended up with him having a grid penalty for the final race at the Sakir outer layout in Bahrain. As Quan now then making his way around the left-hander. As mentioned, Andreoli does have a chance to win the title this week, but whether he can or not, it remains to be seen. Whether for the second season in a row it gets wrapped up here in Dubai, or whether it goes to the finale at the Bahrain outer layout, we will have to wait and see. But of course, the last two races taking place in the Middle East, and these tracks should be a lot better than what we saw in the previous couple of races where we saw chaos. I mean, last season when we last came here, the racing was relatively clean around here, and the same at the Bahrain outer layout. So hopefully we should avoid some chaos this time, Yuri.
Yeah, this track seemed to suit the Formula E cars much better. I think the last round in Fuji, that probably is going to be fixable for Formula E cars. Adelaide, I think, was mostly because of the conditions.
We'll have to wait and see, of course. Of course, it is expected that the next season's calendars for both Formula E and World Champ Car are expected to be shorter to try and make things obviously a little bit easier for Yuri, and hopefully shouldn't have any of them basically cross over with each other, like what the finales are going to be for both of them in Formula E and World Champ Car. How that one's going to work, we'll have to wait and see. I think we'll figure that out closer to the time anyway, how we're going to do those, whether one gets
I'll have to kill my social life for a week.
Yeah, basically, because potentially we could see one of the races getting pre-recorded and the other one being live. We'll have to wait and see, and who knows, both of them could be title deciders as well, so we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, whilst talking, Quan was just started his lap there. He's already passed the first sectors. He makes his way into the hairpin down the back straight, where we can see some overtakes happening during the race. Quan now they're making his way through into the left-hander before he makes his way towards the end of sector 2 very, very soon, which I think is around about here, I think, if I remember correctly from last season. Probably not. Is it after this corner, perhaps? I think it's probably after this corner, if I'm not mistaken. There it is, a 1 minute 15.513 in the second sector as the Vietnamese driver goes flat through the left-hander before he makes his way up towards the hairpin before he approaches the final two turns on the racetrack. Of course, this track was built in 2004 with the intention of having a Formula 1 race here in real life, hence why it is an FIA Grade 1 circuit, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to stage a race, and instead the Middle Eastern contract went to Bahrain instead. But anyway, Nguyen Kwan makes his way onto the pit straight, and across the line he will go, and the benchmarker time is a 1 minute 46.773. Here comes Rafael Demal now then in the Nissan, just making his way onto the pit straight. Demal crosses the line, and he goes second, 2 tenths off. Here comes Aji Prazan now then in the Jaguar. He just makes his way out of the turn, and Prazan will cross the line, and he goes second, 1 tenth off of Kwan. Jackson crosses the line to go quickest by 1.2 seconds. That's a very big margin that Jackson's got over Kwan there. Here comes Dominic Ticelli. He crosses the line to go into 5th. Mohamed Razan crosses the line. He goes into 6th. Ross Denholm crosses the line, and he goes 4th. Here comes Kochi Cheong now then in the Mahindra. He goes into 3rd. Jacob Tobel crosses the line, and he goes 2nd overall. Still a second off of Jackson. Nobody's been able to get under a second behind him at the moment. Sana Chue in the Neo goes into 10th place, 2.8 seconds off, so not the best of laps for her there. Here comes Anis Parachki in the Mercedes, and he is a bit of an outsider in the championship, although I do think it's highly unlikely that Ennis is going to win the title this season. Parachki crosses the line to go into 2nd place, 7 tenths off. Wojciech Kulizak goes into 6th. Here comes Robert Ionescu across the line. He will go. He goes only 5th with that time, 1.2 seconds off of Brandon Jackson, and they are the first 13 cars to have done a lap, but it is Jackson who tops the timing sheets at the moment. But of course we've still got 9 more cars to do a lap, but Jackson doing all he can really to try and save his championship hopes.
Yeah, he set a very good banker lap there. I think it might even be tough to beat that one, but let's see, there's very fast drivers incoming.
Indeed so. We're still yet to see Santino Andreoli make his way out on the track, along with Michael Mocho as well, who, of course, let's not forget, won the previous race at Fuji last time out, which means he moved up to 2nd in the Drivers' Championship and is effectively Andreoli's closest rival in the championship. Mocho coming into this race 34 points behind Andreoli in the championship, and providing how it goes in the race a little bit later on, Mocho could try and take the championship fight all the way down to the last race at the Bahrain outer layout, but of course only time will tell, of course, as he obviously does need to beat Andreoli today to keep his title hopes alive, really. Of course, if Andreoli does win the race today here at Dubai, then he will win the title. So that's that, of course. But of course, I will let you know of other criteria after the qualifying session. They will obviously get sent to Yuri in between after qualifying, just before the race begins, and then you guys can get to see it. Of course, can't show it just yet because again, things might change in this. Things could happen in this qualifying session that might alter some of the criteria that I've got preset already on a file. So might need to do a little bit of tweaking in between qualifying and the race, which might result in me being a little bit silent for the moment. But Ticelli is back in the pits. I think he might be going back out, will he? Or was that just the mechanics just lowering his car down after he came back in? Not 100% sure there. I think it's probably just a case of him just coming back in. But all 13 cars that did their first flying laps have now made their way back into pit lane, as Tobler now then gets wheeled back into the garage. He's currently in 3rd place. A pretty good first lap for Tobler in the Mahindra, considering he's in a Group 3 car. Pretty good effort for him.
Yeah, very good. Probably tells that there's lots of time to be found still, but P3 after your first one in one of the weaker cars, that's really good.
Indeed so, as Owen Carpenter is in the garage now then, as he'll be preparing to do his first flying lap very, very soon. But will anybody beat him to the punch to get out on track beforehand? We'll have to wait and see, of course. Obviously, some of the drivers who did a first lap earlier on will also go out on track, as the mechanics are now preparing. Owen Carpenter, as you can see, he's been lowered off the jacks, and I think he's going to be the first of this group to go out. He will be indeed. There is another car that was just behind him there, coming out on track, but Carpenter is going to be the first out on track and hoping to get some clear air by the time he starts his first flying lap of this qualifying session. It is one of the Audi drivers. I think, looking at the helmet, I think that might have been Andreoli that was coming out. Is Andreoli. It wasn't Ionescu, because otherwise Ionescu's pit indicator would have come off. So Andreoli, the championship leader, is out on the racetrack, and be interested to see how he does on his first flying lap. Carpenter making his way through the double right-hander, where, of course, Alexander Arnold ended his championship hopes last season by going wide and basically redoing dangerously into the path of another car, which, of course, in the end, handed and Agatina Bavona, who's now in Formula 2, the 2020 Formula E title. So anyway, Carpenter now making his way down the back straight. Same goes for Andreoli, who's just in the background now then, as they make their way down towards the hairpin, as there's more cars you see just behind. I think one of them is a Neo that's behind as well, as I think it might be the other one, which is Just Want Q-Mark, because Sona Choi is still in the pit lane as we speak. Excuse me. As Carpenter now, they're making his way up towards the right-hander now then. And now coming around the long sweeping right-hander he goes. It will soon be passing the end of the second sector very, very soon. As DS Cheetah, it's safe to say they've had a pretty okay season. They've scored some pretty good points this season of both Carpenter and Quan. You could argue Carpenter should have more points, but has made some clumsy mistakes this season, which has prevented him from scoring some points. But a decent season for DS Cheetah, and looking to finish the last two seasons on a high. As he makes his way towards the final corner to start his first flying lap of this qualifying session now then, as he makes his way onto the pit straight, and Carpenter now then starts his first flying lap. Same goes for Santino Andreoli, who's just behind him. All 13 cars are out on track, as of course in this series 13 cars.
He looks much faster.
Could get held up. You are right there. He could get held up because he was closing, but we'll wait and see how this lap goes on, of course. There is still a bit of a gap between them, although I do think Andreoli's made a mistake coming through turn 2 there, because it looked like he had a little bit of a wiggle going through into the corner.
Oh,
and
yeah,
yes, he did.
He's completely messed that up. Yeah, that's his lap done, and a bit of pressure there.
Maybe a little bit of championship pressure for Santino Andreoli there, his first flying lap in his qualifying session has gone in the bin as a result. Carpenter 7 tenths down on Jackson in the first sector now then, just rounding this long left-hander before he makes his way towards the back straight now then, and you can see how much time Andreoli lost from that mistake. He's 2.8 seconds off of Jackson in that first sector. A really, really heavy mistake for the championship leader in the first 2 corners of the lap there, and he'll definitely be kicking himself in the cockpit, that is for sure, and we'll be looking to try and get back out later on to try and see if he can set a more representative time in the Audi now then. As Carpenter now then just making his way through the left-hander. Same goes for Santino Andreoli now then, as Carpenter now then up towards the right-hander he goes. Let's see what his second sector looks like compared to Brandon Jackson, as of course this is his first flying lap, and he's 1.4 seconds down on Jackson in that middle sector. So you could say he probably could be around about 11th or 12th for this first lap, and it does seem that Andreoli has gained a little bit in the middle sector, but he's still over 2 seconds off of Jackson. Managed to find 2 tenths in the middle sector to go 2.6 seconds down on Jackson in that middle sector. But
he's basically messed up and provisional pole time.
Potentially, yes, indeed. He'll have to come back out later on and try and see if he can beat Jackson on that occasion, who has stayed out in the pits.
He was 2 tenths faster than Jackson in the second sector.
And
faster in sector 3 as well. He actually beat Soy even with the mistake.
Sonic, he goes into 14th. Kumar goes 16th behind Shui, who's 3 seconds off. Kochi Cheon goes 16th, as here comes Alex Broster. He goes 14th. Aviard crosses the line to go 2nd, 4 tenths off in the Porsche. Marvo Koenig crosses the line to go 3rd, so 1-3 for the BMWs. Kulizek goes to 3rd this time by. The Virgins have had a pretty good last few races, so Kulizek goes up to 3rd. Mocho only 10th on his first flying lap there. Kwan doesn't improve. Tilsley goes into 9th place. I wonder if Kwan and Tilsley were holding each other up on their laps. Parachki is up on his personal best at the moment. Parachki currently in 5th position now, but still 3 tenths down on Jackson in the middle sector. He could get around the top 3. Let's see. Parachki goes to the line. He just misses out. He goes into 4th with that lap. Decelli up on his personal best meanwhile. Decelli currently in... where is he at the moment? He's currently in 15th place at the moment, is the Italian. As Decelli now then rounds the final turn. Let's see where he can put his Nissan after this lap now. Then the Italian crosses the line. Where can he go? And he goes... Well, in fact, he loses time in the last sector and does not improve. He stays in 15th position, losing quite a bit of time in that last sector, as I think these runs done with, but it is still Jackson at the top with Aviard a surprise second in the Porsche at the moment. And of course, Andreoli, a huge mistake on his lap, and he's all the way down in 19th as a result of that big mistake he made in the first 2 corners. As Andreoli now making his way back into pit lane as he caught up to Carpenter. Didn't get held up by him, but whether he would have done without that mistake is another question. I mean, we did notice when they were out on the track that Andreoli was quite close to Carpenter was closing into Carpenter, I should say, but he wasn't close enough on that occasion to get him. But again, whether that mistake had something to do with that, we don't know. But anyway, they're all coming back into the pits this time with just over 16 minutes to go in this qualifying session, and it's going to be quite fascinating to see how if Andreoli can respond on his second flying lap. He should be able to get a second flying lap in, given how much time there is left on the clock. But whether he'll go out next up for the next group of cars, we'll have to wait and see. And as the seconds continue to tick down now then in this session, as Carpenter gets lowered back down. Same will go for Kwan, who has also been out there on the racetrack now then. Might as well update you on the teams championship situation going into this race, of course. I mean, Audi, of course, this is obviously their third chance to try and win the teams title this week. Coming into this race, of course, they find themselves 57 points ahead of Mercedes in the championship. Of course, in total, there are, if I do my calculations, there are 96 points left to play with, including in qualifying. So obviously Audi can't win the team's title in this qualifying session, but they can win it in the race, of course. And given they've got a 57-point lead, which is over a 1-2 finish, and of course a pole position, a 1-2 finish, a fastest lap, and a pole position, they do have a good chance. Providing, of course, if they do outscore Mercedes today, then of course they will win the team's title. So obviously something to pay attention with there. And of course, as mentioned, I will obviously keep updated during the race. As one of the Nissans goes out on track, of course, it's not Jelly, it's of course Rafael Demel. What's that about? What's that about, Yuri?
Wait, you didn't hear that?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Okay, then just ignore it.
I guess something alerted you on the computer, I'm going to guess. But anyway,
well, the chat did hear that, so
I didn't hear anything. So anyway, oh, I guess you were sneezing. I guess you sneezed. Judging from what Maggle said, so I didn't hear it personally. But anyway, as now coming around the left-hander now, then coming down the back straight, as Demel will be starting his lap soon. Of course, there are more cars out on track. One of them being Brandon Jackson, who's looking to improve on that 1 minute 45.483 he's just set. Koenig's come back out onto the racetrack. Andreoli still in the pit lane. Ionescu, his teammate, on the other hand, has come back out to see if he can improve on that 8th position he's currently sitting on at the moment now then. There's one more car in the pit lane, as you can see on the mini-map on the right-hand side. Demel now then coming around the right-hander now then, as he uses a bit of curve on the outside. And Andreoli is out on track, so Andreoli going to try again to see if he can rectify the error that he made previously and try and see if he can get anywhere near Jackson in this qualifying session. As Demel now then making his way around the long swooping left-hander he goes now then, before he makes his way towards the right-hander, as he will now start his next flying lap now then. Demel currently in 14th position behind Ross Denholm now then. Demel coming around the final turn and onto the pit straight will go the Brazilian to start his next flying lap, which will be his second flying lap according to the death panel on the top of your screen. But anyway, Demel now making his way down the pit straight. No traffic, because all 13 cars that are meant to be out here on track are already made their way onto the racetrack. Down in towards turn 1 we go. Obviously an overtaking opportunity that we saw last season as well could present itself there in the race. Now through the long swooping turn 3 and 4, they are double right-handers, they are. Through 5 and then into 6 before making their way into 7 now then. A good series of corners, it's fair to say. Nice fast and flowing corners here at the Dubai Autodrome. As we look in the middle sector, Demel 2 temps up on his personal best, sorry, the first sector I should say, and 3 temps down on Jackson overall. So Demel having a very good first sector compared to his personal best, as he makes his way onto the pit straight now then, before he makes his way down towards the hairpin, as he looks to see if he can keep this up going into the middle sector. Only 5 drivers under a second behind Jackson at the moment. 6 downwards are either over a second, 2 seconds, or 3 seconds in the case of the back row of the grid at the moment, behind Brandon Jackson at the moment. As Demel now then making his way towards the right-hander he goes now then, flicking the car in, as we'll see what his middle sector is going to look like compared to his personal best now then. Let's see what his middle sector looks like. And he's 5 temps up on his personal best and 6 temps down on Jackson in the middle sector. So I think he could get around about 6th, if I'm being totally honest, if he can keep this up, unless he loses time in the last sector. Let's see now then as the Brazilian makes his way around the long left-hander now then. Coming up towards the second to last corner, flat you go because of course of the low speed you're approaching into that corner. Now heading in towards the final corner now then, and onto the pit straight will go Rafael Damao quite soon. Through the final turn, onto the pit straight, Rafael Damao crosses the line. Is he going to go into around about 6th position? He doesn't, he goes 7th. So, but still a decent time nonetheless to get into 7th. Prazan, meanwhile, up on his personal best, as he's got Ionescu following him for slipstream. Prazan crosses the line, he goes 7th. Ionescu goes up to 2nd, he gets onto the front row. So a big improvement there for Ionescu, gets alongside his good friend Jackson on that front row. As there comes Sana Choi now then, in the Neo as she makes her way onto the pit straight, and she goes 16th at that time. Kochi Cheong is not on an improvement. He currently lies in 12th position at the moment, so a decent effort for the Malaysian driver. He now crosses the line and doesn't improve. It looks like he's made a mistake somewhere, and so for Razan, because they're 6 seconds off. Jackson doesn't improve, Tobler doesn't improve, Broster doesn't improve, Koenig meanwhile doesn't improve either, Ross Denholm is not on an improvement either, but it looks like there may have been a mistake going on between two drivers because they were 6 seconds off of Jackson on that lap. As Denholm now then making his way onto the pit straight, the Scotsman crosses the line. No improvement, stays where he is. Andrioli up on his personal best as expected. Can he go faster than Jackson? Across the line he goes, and he does. 4 temps quicker. 1 minute 45.082. That was the lap he tried to do earlier on. And Andrioli, the championship leader, goes to the top of the timing sheets. He knows there's a chance to win the championship, and he's doing everything he can to make sure it gets wrapped up here in Dubai. We now look at Leighton Aviard, who's dropped down to 4th position as a result of Ionescu and Andrioli, the 2 Audi drivers, improving on their laps. As now Aviard comes up towards the final corner. All but one of the championship contenders, the other one being Mocho, did a lap on that occasion. Mocho opted to stay in the pits on this occasion, and so far he's down in 14th. Aviard doesn't improve and stays where he is. But at the moment, Andrioli doing what he couldn't do on the previous lap for Yuri and sticking it onto the top of the timing sheets.
Yeah, he's made up for the mistake on the first run, and 4 tenths up. He's looking really strong right now.
Got the impression you were, Rob, from previous chats, so that's why I said it. So I probably won't say that in future then. But anyway, yeah, so Andrioli at the top by 4 temps out of Jackson with Ionescu in 3rd. Aviard currently 4th with Kulazek in 5th. Parachki in 6th. Koenig in 7th. Tobler in 8th. Prazan 9th. And Damao completing the top 10. Mocho, the nearest rival to Santino Andrioli, currently down in 14th position, although he opted not to go out on this occasion. So we should be expecting him to come back out a little bit later on with just under 9 minutes to go in this qualifying session to determine the grid for the Dubai ePrix a little bit later on, where both championships, of course, could be decided as we wait to see who's going to go out next up, as both the BMWs of Jackson and Koenig are back in the pits. Jackson looked like he got held up by the 2 drivers who were 6 seconds off the pace on that lap, so wasn't able to improve on his time and potentially prevent Andrioli from setting that time he just did. So who knows, maybe we could see a driver break into the 1 minute 44s by the end of this qualifying session. We'll have to wait and see, as we are currently on board with Carpenter, who's looking to go out in just a little bit. There's still a car on track, as you can see on the mini-map, that being Leighton Aviard in the Porsche. He's only just making his way towards the pit entrance, and now he's in the pit lane. So we now wait to see who's going to blink first on the next group. And it looks like, just like we saw earlier, it's going to be Owen Carpenter again in the DS Cheetah, currently down in 19th. And yep, he's going to go out first, just like last time by, as he makes his way into pit lane now then. As Carpenter now then coming out of the pit lane now then, as he makes his way down towards the first corner now then. So Carpenter preparing for his next final lap. As mentioned, currently down in 19th, his teammate Nguyen Kwan already all the way up in 11th place. There's roughly around about a 7/10 gap between the 2 DS Cheetahs so far in this qualifying session, as Carpenter makes his way around the double right-hander. Jake Tosley and Jaswant Kumar have now made their way on track, so there's 3 cars now out on the racetrack as we speak. Made that 4 now, because Ko Chun Cheong in the Venturi has made his way out on track. The brother, of course, of Kochi Cheong, who's currently up in 13th position. As Carpenter now, they're making his way onto the back straight now then, with just over 7 minutes to go in this qualifying session. Carpenter will be hoping there's no traffic by the time he gets back around. and pretty much alone on the back straight. Although I did just see briefly another car just appearing just into shot there in the background on the back straight there. So Carpenter with a big gap behind him in case. So if he makes a mistake on his lap, at least he won't be in anybody's way. If that were to happen. Parachki back out on track as his teammate Michael Mocho. Of course, he desperately needs to improve considering he's down in 14th position so far in this qualifying session as Carpenter makes his way around the long swooping left-hander before he makes his way towards the final 3 turns on the racetrack now. Then as he flicks the car in for the left and then into the second to last corner he goes, which will be flat out, and then it's just one more corner to go for the Irishman as he uses a bit of curb on the outside then. So Carpenter into the final corner and onto the pit straight will go Owen Carpenter as he will start his next flying lap on the racetrack now then. And he's going to start it now. Luckily, everybody got out on track before he made it, so no traffic expected for the Irishman. Just under 6 minutes to go now then in this qualifying session. Carpenter now, they're making his way down towards the first corner now, then through the right-hander he goes, using a bit of curb on the inside, through turn 2, clipping the inside as well, and then around the long swooping turn 3 we will go now then, as they make their way through the double right-hander now, then through into the left, and then into the right-hander now, then will go Carpenter, as he'll soon be approaching the end of the first sector very soon. Will he be able to improve on his personal best in the first sector? Let's see. Carpenter approaches the first sector, 4 temps up on his personal best and 3 temps down on Santino Andreoli. So at the moment, providing he keeps this up, Carpenter may be looking at a big improvement on this flying lap. We will see though, as he's now onto the back straight now then, as he will now come up towards the hairpin very, very soon. As the top 4 currently in this qualifying section elected to stay in the pit lane, including Andreoli, Jackson, and Ionescu. Whether we will see those guys maybe come out towards the end of the session, we'll have to wait and see. I think some will miss out on another lap a little bit later, but others won't. So we will see on that one. As Carpenter now, they're making his way towards the right-hander and towards the end of the second sector very, very soon. Flicking it in through that right-hander, using a bit of curb on the outside. Let's see what his middle sector looks like. 7 temps up on his personal best and 9 temps down. So I think he could get himself into the top 10 here with this lap, but we will see. As Carpenter now, they're making his way towards the third to last turn now then, as he flicks the car in through the left-hander, using a tad bit of curb at the end of the corner now then, through into the second to last corner, using a bit of curb on the inside, using it all on the outside, and now into the final corner will come Owen Carpenter in the DS Cheetah now then, as he will now make his way down the pit straight now then, and Carpenter is going to cross the line and goes into 8th position. A big improvement there for the Irishman. Kumar is also on improvement. He's also got one of the Jaguars right behind him, as Kumar now then makes his way into the final turn and onto the pit straight he will go. Just want Kumar across the line. He will go. Can he improve? And yes, he can, but stays in 21st. Tilsley gets onto the front row, though, with that slipstream. Tilsley goes up to second, splits Andreoli and Jackson as a result. Kok Chung Cheong is also on an improvement. Can he get out of last position? No, he can't. He only improves, and he's now 2.6 seconds behind Santino Andreoli. Mocho up on his personal best. He does need to improve because he's all the way down in 15th position. Mocho, can he get anywhere near? He's actually up on Andreoli. Mocho across the line, and he goes to the top. Mocho breaks into the 1:44s. Parachki goes second. It's a Mercedes 1-2. Macho and Parachki go 1 and 2 on the front row.
Before?
Big improvement. Yeah, where have we heard that before? Definitely in the top class. Macho and Parachki with big improvements on their lap to go first and second. Kulazek in the Virgin. Across the line he will go. He doesn't improve. Dumel doesn't improve either. Kochi Cheong is also not on an improvement. He's dropped down to 15th thanks to Macho's improvement. Kochi crosses the line. Does not improve. Tobler crosses the line. No improvement. Ticelli does thanks to the slipstream, but only up into 13th position. Kwan crosses the line and he stays in 15th position. Prazan is up on his personal best meanwhile, but he's 7 temps down on Mocho in the middle sector, so he's not expected to challenge him after this lap. His teammate Tilsley got up into 4th, but I think Prazan is going to be a bit slower than Tilsley across the line, and he goes into 9th position, gets in front of Marvo Koenig there. But wow, what an amazing laps there for the Mercedes, Jiri.
Yep, and twist into the qualifying as the Mercedes has found some pace.
Indeed so, and Mocho, of course, let's not forget, he is a contender for one of the top class seats, as you may remember in the previous episode. He is a contender for that second Haas seat alongside Bartosz Kloss, so he's going to be not only trying to do everything he can to save his championship, but see if he can do enough to potentially get himself back in the top class, which is what he's been praying to do for quite a while.
Yeah, Mocho is wanted to get that seat, same for Audi's Robert Ionescu. Both are trying to get the seat that's currently being occupied, the underperforming Daniel Fraser. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that
Indeed,
one.
so
Of course,
indeed,
personally, I am really disappointed about Fraser, but what can do when you
yeah,
don't
indeed.
when you don't
It's
perform, you just don't.
As a result of that, you can see the timer. We've already passed the point where drivers can go back out. So it does mean, as a result, Michael Mocho is on pole position for the Dubai E-Prix. Perachki and Mocho's brilliant final laps ensuring that they lock out the front row for this race, which for them could be quite crucial, given that Audi have got a good chance to win the team's title today. So Mercedes doing everything they can to save their team's title. Mocho doing everything he can to save his driver's title hopes at the moment. And if I can tell you that if the result were to stay like this for the race, then the championship would go down to the wire. The team's championship, on the other hand, we will see, of course. I think I'm just trying to calculate in my head what that would mean. Just looking around, just trying to double check. I think Mercedes would actually save their team's title hopes if it were to stay like this. But we'll wait and see how the race pans out. But either way, it is Michael Mocho on pole position for the Dubai EP. And yes, you do get points for pole, Maggle. You get 3 points. So it does mean now that the gap between Mocho and Andreoli in the championship is now down to 31 points. So Mocho making things a little bit easier for himself, potentially to try and save his driver's title hopes going into the Bahrain outer layout next, well, not next week, in 2 weeks' time, I should say. But anyway, some drivers going out there just to get some mileage to get themselves prepared for the race. But it doesn't matter anyway because they're not going to be able to do a time. And I guess we'll wait for these guys either to cross the line or we'll just leave it there. And once the clock reaches a zero, and read out the results really, because I know that sometimes what Yuri likes to do sometimes in the top class. The checkered flag is now out, and we are going to take a look at the results then. So Michael Mocho on pole position with Ennis Perechki in second. Santino Andreoli will start in third with Jake Tilsley fourth. Brandon Jackson in fifth with Robert Ionescu in sixth. The championship contenders all in the top six. Leighton Aviard in seventh. Wojtek Kulizek in eighth with Adi Prazan in ninth. Martha Koenig rounds out the top 10 with Owen Carpenter in 11th. Jacob Tobler in 12th with Dominic Ticelli 13th. Rafael Demal 14th. Nguyen Min Kwan in 15th. Kochi Cheong in 16th. Ross Denholm 17th. Sana Choi in 18th. Mohamed Razan 19th. A disappointing qualifying for him. Alex Proster 20th. Jaswant Kumar 21st. And Kochon Chingon in 22nd position. So we're just going to leave Yuri to set up the grid for the race. But in the meantime, guys, I'm just going to put up the tweet for Twitter, and I'm also going to update the criteria for you guys to see a little bit later on. So apologies if I go a little bit silent. Stay tuned because the Dubai E-Prix race will be coming up very, very soon. Oh, there we go. I've just updated the criteria and sent it over to Yuri, so you should be able to see that very, very soon. But a very interesting qualifying session, and Mocho and Mercedes doing everything they can to try and save both of their championship hopes in this race. And so and that's that really. And obviously you'll soon see the criteria on your screen very soon once Yuri, of course, sorts out the grid. It should be a very, very interesting race. Of course, a Mercedes front row lockout, and of course, last season's race was a pretty good race here as well. A pretty clean race, it's fair to say. I think along with the Bahrain outer layout, we shouldn't be expecting the same sort of chaos that we saw at the likes of Fuji, Adelaide, Uberna Ficticio, and also to a degree Aragon as well. So yeah, it should be a pretty interesting race, and of course Andreoli does have a chance to win the title. As mentioned, you will see the criteria on your screen very, very soon. Of course, one criteria that isn't on the screen, of course, but I will mention it as well, is that if, of course, Andreoli wins the race, he will, of course, win the championship, regardless of where his rivals finish. And, of course, Andreoli, if he manages to get the jump on the both Mercedes at the start and take the lead, then he will be in a championship winning position, of course. But but anyway, you can see the criteria on your screen right now. 10 bits of criteria on your screen right there. And so I'll read them out to you while Shiri is busy sorting out the grid. So, obviously, I mentioned if Andreoli wins the race, of course, then he will win the championship. But here are the other 10 criteria. So, if he finishes second, he needs Mocho and Jackson to finish third or lower to win the championship. He can't afford Mocho or Jackson to finish in front of him. If he finishes third, he needs Mocho to finish fourth and Jackson to finish second to win the title. If he finishes fourth, he needs Mocho to finish fifth and Jackson to finish second to win the title. If he finishes fifth, he needs Mocho to finish sixth, Jackson to finish third, and Ionescu to finish second to win the title. If he finishes in sixth, he needs Mocho to finish seventh, Jackson to finish fourth, and Ionescu to finish second to win the title. If he finishes 7th, he needs Mocho to finish in 8th, Jackson to finish 4th, and Ionescu again to finish 2nd to win the title. There's a few criteria there which say Ionescu needs to finish in 2nd. If he finishes in 8th, he needs Mocho to finish 9th, Jackson to finish 5th, and Ionescu to finish 2nd to win the title. If he finishes 9th, he needs Mocho to finish 10th, Jackson to finish 6th, and Ionescu to finish 3rd to win the title. If he finishes 10th, meanwhile, he needs Mocho not to score. Basically not scoring this race, Jackson to finish 7th and Ionescu to finish 3rd to win the title. And if he fails to score, he needs Mocho to also not score because of the fact that Mocho can still beat him on a countback of wins, and Jackson to finish 7th and Ionescu to finish 4th to win the title. So a lot of possibilities in this race, but it could be interesting to see. Of course, as mentioned, if Andreoli, of course, wins this race, then he will win the championship because of the fact he's got a 31-point lead ahead of Mocho going into this race. And, of course, after this race, there'll only be 30 points left available for the drivers to get. Of course, you get 3 points for pole position and 2 points for the fastest lap. And, of course, 25 points for the race victory. But anyway, we are about to get underway because the stream has just come back on my screen. We're going to have 34 laps of action here at the Dubai Autodrome. So let's take a look at the grid then. It is Michael Mocho on pole position with Enis Pirachki, his teammate, alongside in second place. Santino Andreoli with a chance to win the championship today in third, with Jake Tilsley in fourth. Brandon Jackson starts in fifth with Robert Ionescu sixth. Both of them need a miracle to try and save their championship hopes today. Leighton Aviard, a good qualifying for him. He starts in seventh with Wojtek Kulizek in eighth. Aji Prazan will start in ninth with Marvo Koenig all the way down in 10th. Owen Carpenter starts in 11th with Jacob Tobler in 12th position. Dominic DeCelli 13th with teammate Rafael Demal in 14th. Nguyen Kwan starts 15th with Kochi Chion in 16th. Ross Denholm will start 17th with Sana Chue in 18th. Mohamed Razan starts 19th with Alex Broster in 20th. And on the back row of the grid, it is Jaswant Kumar in the Neo and Ko Chung Cheong in the Venturi. The weather, it is going to be completely bone dry. No real surprise really given we're in the Middle East. But let's get on with it. Will Santino Andreoli win the title today? Can Audi Andreoli wrap up the team's title, or will both championships go down to the wire at the Bahrain Outer Layout in 2 weeks' time? We will see, of course. But we are about to get on the grid. Here we are then for 34 laps of action. It's Mocho on the right of your screens, Parachki on the left, with Andreoli just behind the pair of them. Who is going to get the lead into this long run to the first corner? We were about to find out. 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, and now 5 lights are on. And it's lights out, and away we go for the Dubai ePrix here at the Dubai Autodrome. Who's going to get the lead down towards the first corner? It looks like Andreoli has got a better start compared to Parachki, and he looks like he's got the jump on him as Andreoli now tries to get the slipstream on Mocho. Can he get the lead into the first corner? The top two in the championship go side by side down towards the first corner. Has Andreoli got the lead? He has. Andreoli takes the lead, and Jackson goes up to second place. What a start from him from 5th place. Jackson up to 2nd. Andreoli takes the lead. Mocho down to 3rd. Ionescu's also had a good start. He looked like he was going to get 4th, but is going to place a start to 5th. Prazan in 8th as Aviard is splitting the 2 Jaguars, going around the first couple of corners. But an amazing start for Santino Andreoli, and that's exactly what he needed to do, because if the result stays like this, Andreoli will win the championship. He is in championship winning position, but can Jackson and Mocho try and close him back up, the 2 drivers who are close to him in the championship? Well, Mocho's the closest, and he's trying to re-overtake Jackson down the back straight as they go down the back straight gnarly. Meanwhile, Ionescu having to defend for, I think that's Jake Tilsley behind as the other Jaguar of Prazan is trying to attack Aviard into the hairpin. Can Mocho get the move done on the inside of Jackson into the hairpin? No, he can't. Jackson breaks that a little bit later and holds on to 2nd place. Tilsley tries to get through on Ionescu. Didn't work. Prazan gets the move done on Aviard into the hairpin there as Koenig tries to have a go at Aviard now but can't get the move done. But a relatively clean start. But what a perfect start for Santino Andreoli, Yuri.
Yeah, he's got the start completely perfect and managed to get through both of the Mercedes easily. And now he just needs to build the lead if he can.
Yes, indeed, because as mentioned, if it were to stay like this, Andreoli would win the championship. If it would stay like this. Of course, coming into this, it was 31 points thanks to Mocho taking pole position. But at the moment, it will be a championship win for Andreoli, because of course after this race only 30 points will remain. We'll have a look in the team's championship in a little bit, but at the end of lap 1 then of 34 it is Andreoli who leads. But will he be leading from Jackson, because Mocho is still all over the back of him right now then as he's trying to make a move on Jackson into the first corner. I thought for a minute that Jackson was going to try and defend, but it was already too late. Mocho on the inside, can he grab 2nd place off of Jackson into the first corner? Down the inside it goes. Jackson trying to hang it around the outside into the first corner. Mocho will try and hang it around turn 2, but he can't work out. Ionescu has got Parachki. Robert Ionescu, a good move from him. He gets up into 4th place as now Prazan's trying to go all the way around the outside of Parachki around this left-hander. Can the Indonesian get the move done? He can do, and a brilliant move from Prazan, and he's up into 5th position as now Parachki finds himself in a Jaguar sandwich with Tilsley down in 7th place. He also has lost a place to his teammate, so he's lost 2 places. Well, a place to him in the process as Macho and Jackson continue to scrap it out for 2nd, but if they keep doing that, it's just going to allow Andreoli to pull away a little bit more as Tobler, who's had a good start, he's now into the point, has got Kulizek all over the back of him, and has also got Owen Carpenter behind for company as well as they make their way down the straight. Mocho trying to look again on the inside of Brandon Jackson, but again, same consequence. He's able to break that a little bit later. Meanwhile, Tilsley trying to get back at Prazan, but can't work. Can Parachki, can he also though get hold of Parachki though at the same time as Parachki still sticking with him around the left hand, and Parachki just able to hold on to 6th from Tilsley in the process, but they've also brought along somebody else as the battle for 2nd continues. It's now up to 2.1 seconds. That battling is continuing to allow Andrew to pull away as Carpenter has got up to 10th place. He's managed to pass both Kulizek and Tobler down that straight, so he's managed to get a double overtake done. That's a pretty impressive stuff for the Irishmen as they make their way up towards the 3rd to last corner. Mocho doing everything he can to put Jackson under extreme pressure, but he just can't seem to find a way through on the BMW at the moment.
Yeah, he's really struggling to get past. And I think it's usually it's about the setup of the cars, because the engines don't have differences in this. So it's all about the setup, but Mocho's got a good run here. He might do it now.
Might do indeed. He's on the inside of Jackson. Surely this is the move done for the Portuguese Brit. Down the inside he goes, and I think he has got the move done, and he has. Mocho finally gets past Jackson, and he's up into 2nd place now. Can he go after Andreoli and try and save his championship hopes? He's got 2.9 seconds in which to gain onto the Frenchman, as meanwhile Ionescu will want to try and get a hold of Jackson if he can, as Carpenter is up into 8th place on seen by the cameras. He's been making some incredible progress in these early laps. He's up into 8th and is now on the back of Enis Parachki, who unseen by the cameras cameras has been overtaken by Jake Tilsley, and Tilsley now up into 6th, so 5th and 6th for the two Jaguar drivers. I'm just going to take a look at what is going on in the team's championship. Well, if it were to stay like this at the moment, with Andrioli in 1st and Ionescu in 4th position at the moment, because I think Andrioli does have the fastest lap, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. I think we can quickly double check on that if we're... He does have the fastest lap. Thank you for the clarification, Yuri. As hold that thought, because out of nowhere, Prazan has got 4th place off of Ionescu. He got an amazing run down onto the straight there, and Prazan gets hold of 4th place. So that kind of changes the maths a little bit for Audi there. They're now on 37 points with Ionescu down into 5th, and Andrioli leading with the fastest lap of the race. 37 points compared to how many would Mercedes be? 18 plus... well, he's on 18 plus 6, so that's obviously 24. If it were to stay like this, Audi would win the team's title, so both championships would be wrapped up if it were to stay like this, as Mocho is already pulling away from Jackson. Meanwhile, Carpenter trying to look on the inside of Enis Parachki, as of course that typical thing with a left-hander slows them down, but Carpenter taking full advantage and gets up into 7th. Also taking full advantage is Leighton Aviard. He's going to grab hold of 8th place here from Parachki. Could Kulizek also get by as well? Could
really Parachki...
He is in trouble indeed, you are right on that, and he's been completely mugged by 3 cars. Parachki down into 10th, that's not going to help Mercedes' team's title chances at all, as Tobler, who's dropped places after his incredible start, down to 14th, was trying to get a hold of Demel here, it didn't work out, and now he's under pressure from his teammate, Kochi Cheong, as they make their way down the straight. Parachki, though, not giving up, he's trying to retake 9th place from Kulizek in front. Danny inside, goes the Macedonian driver, but Kulizek breaking that little bit later and holds on, as the Chelly gets the move done on Marva Koenig, meanwhile, and gets up into 11th place as Tobler gets by on up into 13th place there. As meanwhile, let's have a look at the gap between Andrioli and Mocho. Meanwhile, down to 2.8. It's kind of stabilised a little bit, I think, between these two, to be honest. He's gained a little bit from the last time we checked, but not really a lot than what I was anticipating. 2.8 seconds, the gap between the top two in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, as Mocho's been able to pull a 1.5 second lead over Jackson, as Ionescu has not given up yet on Aji Prazan, as they go side by side down the back straight now. Then, is he going to try and go around the outside of the Indonesian driver? He's going to try it, but Prazan just able to hold on for a moment. I thought for a minute there, given the speed that Ionescu had down the straight there, he was going to pull it off, but it didn't quite work out. Kochi Chio, contact with the Nissan there, gets a tap on the back, but luckily nothing major happened, and well, he's going to have to stay behind for the moment there. Demel staying firm and holding on to that 14th place at the moment as the train of cars start to form behind. I think that's Wojtek Kulizek in front, I think, or has Parachi gone in back, I'm not sure. But meanwhile, Ionescu again not giving up on Prazan. The gap down to 2.7 seconds now between Andrioli and Mocho, meanwhile, so Mocho is continuing to close the gap, but not by a lot, as now coming around the second to last corner we go, as Ionescu's up on his personal best meanwhile, and at the moment, if it were to stay like this, both Jackson and Ionescu would be out of the title fight, and at the moment, Andrioli, of course, would win the championship unless Mocho can get past him. Andrioli, though, responds to that and sets the fastest lap, a 1 minute 47.361, so still maintaining them 2 bonus points for the fastest lap of the race, and as a result, has been able to pull a gap in that sector up to 2.9 seconds ahead of Michael Mocho, so he was able to respond a little bit to Mocho's pace on that occasion, as Mocho continues to pull away from Jackson now to up to 2.1 seconds. Ionescu still stuck behind Prazan as we speak, but he's trying to go all the way around the outside if he can, like we saw with Prazan a little bit earlier on with Parachki, but can't get the move done, and once again may have to wait for the back straight at the moment. Ionescu probably getting a little bit frustrated behind Prazan as we speak.
Yeah, probably. He's usually... Sometimes the drivers might get a little impatient when stuck behind other cars who are clearly slower, but let's see if Ionescu can get the move done cleanly without any trouble.
Yes, indeed, and we'll have to see if he's able to try and get him onto the back straight, as we just saw Coach Cheon making a little bit of an error through into the long right hander whilst we were talking about the battle between Ionescu and Prazan, as he just comes out of the corner, as meanwhile Razan trying to have a go at someone there. Meanwhile, there's lots of side-by-side going on here. This is Tobler side-by-side with Parachki, who's down to 12th place on team by the cameras. He's now out of the points. He's been overtaken by Koenig and has now found himself out of the points, and now he's holding up a few other cars. This is just a disastrous race for Parachki.
He's looking really bad here. He's shockingly slow, to be honest. I don't know what's going on with him.
No, it just seems like he's just not been himself in these opening few laps. There's a big lock up there for Kwan as he's down to 21st meanwhile after his impressive qualifying. So he started to drop back through the field and finds himself in a Neo sandwich with Kumar behind and Choi in front of him. So, yeah, not the best of starts for Nguyen and Kwan in the DS at Cheetah in this race. But importantly, still all 22 cars in this race, although I probably may have jinxed it now that I've mentioned it. But Andrioli, I think, is about to, well, he's already started lap 6 of the race as Mocho doing everything he can to close up. It's still 2.9 seconds. So again, the gap stabilizing again as Decelli and Kulizek resume their battle for ninth place. Ionescu's finally got by on Prazan. So Ionescu finally gets the move done and has retaken 4th place from Aji Prazan. So Ionescu back up into 4th position. So he'll now try and close back up onto Jackson if he can. As another place lost for Parachki. He's down to 13th place now then as he's been overtaken by, I think that was Jacob Tobel who he's been overtaken by, as Kochi Cheong on the inside now then of Rafael Demau trying to go all the way around the outside if he can, as they're still going to remain side by side through the right-hander. Is the Malaysian going to get the move done on Demau through into this right-hander? Well, he thought about it, but Demau just hangs it around the outside and holds on to that position. It allows Razan and co to now get onto the back of Kochi Cheong as a result, as meanwhile Decelli and Kulizek once again into combat for 9th position. And, well, I should point out as well, as I think Virgin and Nissan are currently fighting for 5th in the Teams Championship. So basically, this is a personal battle between the two teams as, whoa, that was nearly close to contact there between Kulizek and Decelli. But thankfully, they kept that one clean as now they make their way through into the left-hander now. The gap 1.3 seconds between Ionescu and Jackson, meanwhile, as it was basically accumulating the combined gaps throughout the entire field there, the graphic said on the underneath on that occasion. As in terms of pit stops, for anybody wondering, I think we should expect pit stops to happen around about lap, I would say around about lap 20 to 22 or so, quite late on in the race. But we should expect them around about at the beginning of the second half of this race is when we should see the mandatory pit stops happen in this race. It's Prazan, oh, big lock up there for the Indonesian as he was trying to re-overtake Ionescu there, but has compromised his exit and could give Tilsley and even Carpenter a chance to pounce on him as a result. As it looked like Prazan was starting to respond a bit to Ionescu's pace, but that mistake has definitely cost him as he was possibly trying to follow him to try and see if they can catch back up to Jackson for 3rd position. As meanwhile, we can see Decelli again attacking Kulizek into the first corner. Is he going to get the move done this time by into the first corner? And he is. Decelli up into 9th position, so he gets the move done. And the next target for him is Leighton Aveyard in the Porsche in front as he tries to get away from Kulizek as best as possible now. Then as we look at Mocho, he's making his way around the double left-hander as Kochi Jian going a little bit wide. Is he trying to go all the way around the outside of Parachki into that corner? Not going to work out. Parachki, as mentioned, really struggling in his opening stages of the race. It seems on this stint he's really struggling, and who knows really, maybe going for a very long stint. 2.2 seconds now the gap between Jackson and Ionescu, so it seems that Jackson may be lapping a little bit quicker than Ionescu at this stage. Meanwhile, the two Jaguars going to combat. Will Tilsley try and break that a little bit later than Prazan? He's thinking about a move, but has to back out of it last minute, and Prazan holds on to that 5th position as the two Jaguars continue to follow Robert Ionescu behind at the mirrors. Meanwhile, Parachki could get done on the straight here by the Mahindra, and he does do. Parachki seems to be really struggling on the straight line speed and has been overtaken by Kochi Cheong, and he gets up into 13th place. What is going on with Parachki today? He just, either the setup has gone wrong or he just seems to be a little bit off today.
He's looking really off the pace. I don't think he's going to score points at this rate. Like, his fuel isn't that much higher, and it just looks like he doesn't have the confidence in his car at the moment, as Mocho has just set the fastest lap of the race.
He has. Mocho has now taken the fastest lap away from Andrioli, so Mocho holding on to the 2 points for the fastest lap of the race, but that's not going to be enough for him to save his titles. Meanwhile, Prazan and Ionescu once again into combat in the fight for 4th position. Prazan has not left Ionescu alone in this race, and as a result, he re-overtakes the Romanian and he's up once again into 4th position. As Decelli, meanwhile, got 8th place off of Leighton Aveyard. So, yeah, it seems that the Prazan-Ionescu fight looks to continue in this race.
Yep, their pace seems very similar, and I think the main thing separating them while the other is behind is the slipstream.
Yes, indeed, and as you mentioned, of course, as well, Yuri. Of course, obviously these cars have the same power in terms of the powertrain in the back. It's mainly the setup really that's making all the difference, and also the way they basically set up the car for cornering. Really, is the only thing that really separates them. 2.6 seconds the gap between Andretti and Mocho. Is meanwhile, we're looking at Kulizek now is trying to attack Aviard, who obviously just been overtaken earlier on by Charlie, and looks like he could get him in straight line speed here, just like we saw with Coach Gion earlier, and he does. So Kulizek up into ninth place, mugs Aviard on the straight, and that's P9 for the Czech driver. As meanwhile, it's still 2.8 seconds. So even though Mocho set that fastest lap, it looks like Andreoli again starting to respond to his pace and pulled away by 2 tenths in the previous sector. So every time Mocho looks like he's going to have an advantage on Andreoli, it just seems like Andreoli is always able to respond to him at this stage as we're looking at Choi, who takes a wider line through into the right-hander. But yeah, every time Mocho seems to have the pace, Yuri, it seems like Andreoli always is able to respond at the moment.
They are very equally matched at the moment, which to me tells that if Andreoli wins this, he wins it purely because of the race start.
Yes, indeed. But on that occasion, Mocho was able to respond to that sector and got it back down to 2.7 seconds. So I think it's going to be interesting to see between those two what's going to happen once the mandatory pit stops come into play. Whether Mocho is able to lap a lot quicker after the pit stop or whether Andreoli is able to get away is going to be a question.
Mocho is running 2 laps heavier than Andreoli.
So he'll have 2 laps fresher tyres then compared to Andreoli as well, which could make the difference. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on, as we just saw Prazan have a moment going through into the first few turns there, but Ionescu wasn't able to capitalise. That is because just behind, unseen by the cameras, Carpenter was able to overtake Tilsley, and now Carpenter is all over the back of Ionescu for 5th place. So Ionescu looking like he's not able to respond to Prazan on this occasion, as meanwhile Kwan has finally got the move done on Shui, and now it looks like the two Neos are going to be fighting towards the back. But meanwhile Carpenter all over the back of Ionescu. He's had a very strong start to the race, has the Irishman and the DS Cheetah. Is Carpenter going to get the move done on Ionescu into the airpin? The answer to that is no. Ionescu able to hold on, and well, it looks like Ionescu's got more on his plate to deal with in this race, because now he's starting to lose time to Prazan, who's doing his best to close in on Jackson. The gap 2.8 seconds between both Jackson and Prazan at the moment, as Carpenter doing everything he can to dispose of Ionescu, whilst also having Tilsley behind for company at this stage.
Yep, I have to say that it looks like Andreoli and Mozzo are the only ones who are driving at an championship contender level at the moment. I don't think guys like Jackson or Ionescu especially is doing good enough job to gain in the championship or even be close at the end.
Indeed, sir. Yes, indeed. But speaking of Ionescu, he's got Carpenter all over the back of him now. Then is Carpenter going to get the move done on the Romanian down towards the first corner? He's trying to go level with him down the inside, but as we just looked right there, look like Ionescu had the overlap for a brief period. Carpenter doing his best, but Ionescu, because of the fact he just had the overlap going into the first corner, able to hang it around the outside and hold on to 5th. And now Tilsley wants to go back past on Carpenter if he can around the outside, but not able to get enough momentum because Carpenter was able to stick in Ionescu's slipstream there and be able to maintain 6th place for the time being. Now then, as we look at Mocho, who's been able to get the gap down to 2.6 seconds on that occasion, as meanwhile the two Neo drivers fighting towards the back. This is Kumar trying to look on the inside of Sana Chue into the first corner, but it looks like Chue's just going to be able to hold it around the outside and hold on to P21 at the moment. It looks like the Neos looking like they're going to be scrapping for amongst themselves in this race at the moment. As mentioned, all 22 cars still in this race at the moment, so you could definitely say a lot more cleaner and a lot more reliable than what we've seen in the previous few races in this Formula E Championship. As meanwhile, back towards the battle between Razan and Dumel, meanwhile, as Razan trying to get 14th place off of the Brazilian, the Indonesian looking to the inside, but not able to get the move done because Dumel is able to break that a little bit later and hold on. The gap now down to 2.4 seconds. So Mocho starting to respond a little bit more. He took 2 tenths out of Andreoli in sector 2. So Mocho maybe starting to respond to Andreoli's pace at this point in time. As now once again the two Neos scrapping towards the back, as Jackson continues to lose time to the top 2. He's now 5.6 seconds back from Mocho, as the gap is 3.1 seconds between him and Prazan. So whilst he's losing time to Mocho, he is able to lap a little bit quicker than Prazan at this stage. As we now look the battle for 14th again between Duhamel and Razan for 14th place. Quite low down in the order. 2.2 seconds now, the gap between Mocho and Andrioli. So I think it's safe to say that Mocho is now starting to lap quicker than Andrioli at the moment. Meanwhile, Carpenter again attacking Ionescu for 5th position. Will he get the move done this time on the Romanian driver? No, again, same story. Ionescu able to break that a little bit later and all into 5th. Maybe that car is just set up better on the straight than what Carpenter's is at the moment. Let's see the gap now between Andrioli and Mocho this time by, or maybe not. In fact, no, we can. We just saw it at the bottom. 1.8 seconds. Mocho is definitely lapping a lot quicker than Andrioli. He's probably been told to turn the taps up a little bit, and now he is really starting to gain onto Andrioli as the gap is coming down now between the top 2 in the championship. Mocho knows
really
that Andrioli... He knows at this stage of the race, even before the pit stops have started, that if he wants to save his championship hopes, he's got to overtake Andrioli in this race, and he's doing everything he can to try and put the Frenchman under pressure.
Yep, he needs to gain, and let's go back and see what's the gap now.
We're coming up to the end of Sector 2 now, then. Let's see if Andrea has responded. No, he hasn't. Mocho continuing to push hard. It's now down to 1.6 seconds between the top 2. Perhaps indeed, maybe Andrioli may have burnt his tyres up a little bit at this stage as Tilsley trying to put Cicelli under a bit of pressure, who, unseen by the cameras, has overtaken Tilsley somewhere a little bit early on. So Cicelli now up into 7th place ahead of Tilsley, as meanwhile Carpenter is still not giving up on Ionescu in front, and they could have to deal with Cicelli soon if they're not careful. Coming out in the final turn, what's the gap this time by between both Mocho and Andrioli as they make their way onto the pit straight now then, as just trying to look at the gap, it still says around about 1.7, probably because it was still the sector from previously earlier on, and we didn't see the gap on that occasion, so that's a bit of a shame. Still around 1.7, so maybe Mocho wasn't able to gain too much on him on that sector. But of course, we will see what happens on this lap as they make their way around the double right-hander now. Then on the racetrack, making their way towards the left-hander. Mocho's pushing has meant that he's now got the gap to over 6 seconds ahead of Jackson. It's still 1.6 seconds, as you can see down below, as they'll soon be approaching the end of Sector 1 very, very soon. Meanwhile, Razan on the inside of Duhamel. Can he finally get the move done? The answer to that is no. Duhamel is going to hold on to 14th place for the time being. Oh, Prazan's gone wide. Prazan has gone wide into the corner there. Can the likes of Ionescu and Carpenter capitalise? And they might be able to. Yes, they can. Ionescu goes through, Carpenter goes through, and Prazan drops to 6th. A little bit of a clumsy error there from the Indonesian.
Yeah, he just loses the car in the mid-corner and has to take the curb. And his rejoin is quite a struggle. I think he could have done it a little bit faster and saved the positions, but bit of poor driving there for Prazan.
But it has allowed Ionescu to get up into 4th place and Carpenter up into 5th. They've been able to gain a place at the expense of Prazan's mistake. As it looks like now Andrioli is starting to respond now to Mocho's pace, because he's got it up to 1.9 seconds. So it looked like it seems a change of the guard at this stage. Meanwhile, side-by-side action going on. Carpenter on the inside of Ionescu, and he finally gets the move done. Carpenter up into 4th as Prazan just able to fend off from Cicelli at this stage of the race after his mistake. But yeah, Carpenter finally up to 4th, and he's had a brilliant first stint to the race, Yuri.
Yeah, Carpenter is doing really good with the car he's having, and he's one of the best performers so far on this race. Something I have to say about the Mocho Andrioli battle is that it seems like they are having kind of a cat and mouse fight going on, and they are just responding to each other's pace.
The two Neos going side by side into the hairpin there, although I don't expect the position to change. 1.6 seconds again, the gap. So whilst we thought for initially Andrioli was starting to respond, Mocho now starting again to respond. So as Yuri just mentioned there, a little bit of a yo-yo effect going on, really. A bit of a cat and mouse fight for between Mocho and Andrioli in terms of who can lap quicker at this stage of the race. Of course, we haven't even got to the mandatory pit stop stages yet. And as mentioned, as Yuri mentioned earlier, we know that Mocho has got 2 laps worth more fuel compared to what Andrioli has, so maybe Mocho could take advantage, or more battery I should say, if we're using Formula E terms, but either way, he could use the fresher tyres a little bit later on to his advantage, Mocho. He's not able to jump Andrioli in the pits. 1.5 seconds now, the gap between the top 2 at this stage, as they continue to pull away from the rest of the pack and basically be in a league of their own, as meanwhile there's some side-by-side action going on in front of Duhamel, meanwhile, as it looks like Razan, unseen by the cameras, is finally able to pass him, as someone else goes wide now. This time, it's Razan's teammate. So speaking of Porsches, Aviard, who was looking very strong early on, has now made the same error as what Prazan has, and is down into 15th position. And yeah, pretty much the same error, Yuri.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. That corner seems to be catching drivers off guard. Maybe there's some wind.
Perhaps indeed, or maybe it was the fact that Koenig put him under a bit of pressure. As now Prazan attacking Ionescu, and once again Ionescu loses another place as Prazan gets up into 5th position, and now Ionescu has got Dominic Tuccelli all over the back of him now then. So that's 2 places that Ionescu has lost in the space of a couple of laps, as Macho is up on his personal best. So I think currently he holds on to the fastest lap, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we could be seeing another fastest lap coming from Macho here.
Maybe. Some cars are having some tire wear at the moment, and some have been a little bit better on the tires. It seems like Audi especially has struggled a bit with the tires so far. Andreoli is managing well enough, but you can see that Mozzo is actually catching little by little.
Macho was not able to get the fastest lap on that occasion as he lost a little bit of time in that last sector. I mean, he was only 27 thousandths up on his personal best in the middle sector. So you could say that he may have lost a bit of time in that last sector and wasn't able to get another fastest lap. But still 1.4 seconds the gap between the top 2 at the moment as the 2 Neos continue to squabble for 21st. Chue has been able to keep a teammate back for quite a long time. But as you can see on the mini-map, they're losing track to the whole pack, really. Let's see the gap this time by between the pair of them. It is now up to 1.6. So Andrea able to respond on that occasion. Tuccelli trying to go all the way around the outside of Ionescu, but Ionescu says no to that and holds on to that 6th position now then as they make the way towards the right-hander now then with around 20 and a bit laps to go in this race. Of course, we still need to get to the mandatory pit stop stages of this race before mentioning anything, as everybody, as not only Tuccelli but also Tilsley stuck behind Ionescu at the moment as they make their way onto the straight now then. So onto the straight we go now then. Let's see if Tuccelli is able to get the move done on Ionescu this time by. Looks like it's going to be no, because Ionescu is going to come in off. Tuccelli tries to flick back to the inside, but Ionescu will get later on the brakes and hold on to that 6th position for the moment. At the moment, as things stand at the moment, for anybody who wants an update on the championship, if it was to stay like this, Andreoli would win the Drivers' Championship and Audi would wrap up the Team's Championship and be the first team in GP4 Formula E history to retain their team's title. So a bit of an impressive feat there for Audi, as I think they'd be the first anyway. I might be wrong on that, but anyway, I'll obviously double check on that obviously after the race if they do win it. But anyway, the 2 Neos once again into combat for the fight to stay out of last place. Kumar trying to go on the inside of Chue, but Chue able to hold on and holds on to P21. The gap 1.4 seconds still between the top 2. I do think this is probably going to come down to the pit stop stages perhaps. We can see that Macho's got around about 7 laps worth left, and because he's 2 laps more than Andreoli should have around about 5 laps more left in his wagon. But anyway, here comes Tuccelli now then, once again attacking Ionescu for what is 6th position. Can he get the move done on the Romanian driver down towards turn 1? I don't think he will, because Ionescu's just got enough of an overlap through into the first corner, and as a result he's able to hold on once again to that 6th position. Can Tilsley take advantage and try and re-overtake Tuccelli around the outside into turn 3? He won't be able to. Tuccelli using Ionescu's slipstream to stay in front for the moment. 1.1 seconds now, the gap between Andreoli and Macho, so Macho is getting closer to potentially getting under a second between him and Andreoli.
Yeah, and if he gets close enough, he's going to have the slipstream, and it's going to be way easier to stay with him now. So
perhaps indeed.
So it does look like Andreoli might be in a little bit of in a trouble.
Perhaps indeed, as briefly there, my Discord decided to have a little bit of a moment on me there with the stream, but thankfully it's just fixed itself. Anyway, after Sector 2, what is the gap now? It's still roughly around 1.1 seconds according to the dev panel. In fact, he said it down there, 1.113, the gap specifically on that occasion. So I think Macho was able to gain only tiny chunks on him on that occasion, but still able to keep up with him at the moment as he continues to pull away from Jackson, as Jackson is around 8.6 seconds behind the pair of them at this stage, as the 2 Neos continue to fight for 21st position, as these two have been fighting for quite a long time in this race, it's fair to say, as they make their way down towards the hairpin. Is Kumar going to get the move done this time on Trey? He's going to try and get the edge on her out of the corner. Is this going to be P21 for the Indian driver? Can he hang around the outside? No, he can't. Trey able to hold on to P21 as a result now then. The gap 8.6 seconds still between the pairs. Decelli again trying to get better traction in Ionescu out the corner. He did, but didn't have enough momentum. It looks like Ionescu's got the car set up perfectly for the straight compared to Decelli, so he needs to possibly try and trick him somewhere if he wants to get into place. Although on this occasion, he might actually have him on this occasion, or will he? No, he won't. Ionescu just able to hang it around the outside and once again hold on to that sixth position. Decelli really struggling to get by on Ionescu at this stage, and if they're not careful, both Decelli and Tilsley, they may also have to deal with Wojtek Kulizek, who's also not far behind these lot either, as they make their way around the double right-hander now then on the racetrack. Ionescu taking a wider line out of the corner before making their way out of the first sector, although maybe having to go in a bit defensive there because Decelli thought about trying to get him on the exit there, but it didn't work out there as they now make their way around at the left-hander now then, using a bit of curb on the outside. Still 1.1 between Mocho and Andrea, so at this stage it has kind of stabilised, although having said that, according to the graphic down the bottom, it's 1.062 at the moment, so Mocho not far away from getting it under a second. Decelli once again looking to the inside of Ionescu, but again, same story. Ionescu holds on to 6th place for the moment and continues to hold on to that train that's behind him of Decelli, Tilsley, and pretty soon Wojtek Kulizek in the Envision Virgin Racing car as they make their way towards the right-hander now then. As we look back at Jackson, who's now 9.3 seconds back from Mocho and looking pretty lonely in third position, knowing that potentially his championship is potentially going to be over after this race unless anything happens to the top two drivers in front of him. Meanwhile, the two Neos once again into combat. Look like Kumar got better acceleration down the straight that time by, but still not able to get later on the brakes compared to Choi, and I think the same story is going to happen to what happened on the previous lap between the pair, and yep, Choi able to hold on. 1.057 now the gap, so only incremental amounts that that Machi was able to take, although hold the fort, because as you can see on the top on the def panel, Andreoli is coming into the pits this lap, so the mandatory pit stops will officially get underway on this lap, specifically at the halfway point.
Yep, and now that strategy part of the race is going to begin. Is Andreoli going to gain a huge gap with an undercut, or is Mozzo, or has Mozzo kept the tires in good enough condition to overcut him? And
That's good.
Traffic will also come into play now. It's going to be very, very interesting to see which one of these two is going to win in the pit stop stage.
Indeed, but even before the pit stops, you can see now Mocho has been able to get the gap to under a second now. It's now 0.8 seconds between the pair, but Mocho is not going to be able to get Andreoli on track, even if he wanted to, because of course, as mentioned, Andreoli is coming into the pits at the end of this lap, meaning that Mocho will take the lead for at least 2 laps, or either 1 or 2 laps, because we know he's got around about 2 laps more than what Andreoli has got in his wagon, so he could take advantage of potentially having 2 lap fresher tyres compared to Andreoli when he has to make his mandatory pit stop. But anyway, Andreoli is going to be the first to make his mandatory pit stop in this race. As he makes his way through the second to last corner, he'll peel to the right and into the pits goes the championship leader in the Audi, Abt Schäffler. And now coming in, this has to be a crucial stop for Audi. If they want to win the championship today, they've got to make this pit stop work out well for Andreoli, as the mechanics are waiting for him in the box, the first pit lane there, and let's see how quick the stop is going to be then for the Frenchman. A fresh set of tyres and fuel going on to, or electricity in FE terms, for Andreoli. 20 laps to the end, so of course he is obviously going to the end because of course there's one pit stop. 6.7 seconds the pit stop time for the Audi. Somebody else is also coming into the pits, in fact a couple of them are, because you can see more mechanics in the pit lane. But where is Andreoli going to emerge after this pit stop? As he trundles down pit lane. Let's see now then, and he's going to emerge. He's going to rejoin in 5th position, just ahead of Decelli, who's right behind him. So he's got a bit of... So pretty good timing. He's got a bit of a gap in front, so slight bit of clean air, but he needs to be careful because Decelli might want to try and attack him, as Decelli, speaking of which, trying to go around the outside of Andreoli, but not going to work out. Andreoli holds on for the moment. Jacob Tobler, meanwhile, in the Mahindra is coming to the pits. Mocho, as a result of Andreoli's pit stop, is in the lead temporarily, but he'll be hoping that Decelli does him a favour and maybe try and hold up Andreoli on this stint, as Decelli is not expected... He might do very soon, as Decelli is not expected to pit for a few laps. So, as meanwhile, the other Audi behind, Ionescu, has obviously unseen by the cameras, has been overtaken by Decelli somewhere on the racetrack. And Decelli may have the straight line speed advantage here on Andreoli as they go side by side down towards the hairpin. Is the Tilsley and Ionescu behind continue to scrap? Is Tilsley going to get the move done in Ionescu? He is indeed. Tilsley gets the move done, or does he? Because Ionescu's still on the inside going into the left-hander. They're still going to remain side by side, but I think Tilsley's just going to to have the traction, and Tilsley gets in front. Is Kulizek going to take full advantage and get hold of Ionescu as well? He thought about it, but had to back out the last minute. So Ionescu holds on to that place, but Tilsley gains a place off of Ionescu there. As we now look at Mocho, who's about to start lap 19 of 34 in this race. Kulizek in the Virgin, who is right behind Ionescu. In fact, he's coming into the pits this lap, so Ionescu will not have to worry about Kulizek for much longer anyway on this stint, as Jackson about to start the next lap of the race now then, which will be lap 19. Now, is Mocho coming into the pits this lap? Because we know he didn't pit on this occasion, and he will be. Mocho is pitting this lap, so we were right. It was going to be around 2 laps more than Andrioli, so it'd be interesting to see how this stint pays out and see if he can try and get the jump on Andrioli in the pit stop as he makes his way around the double left-handers. Wojtek Kulizek, meanwhile, in the Envision Virgin Racing, comes into the pits.
And Mocho's set on massive first sector here.
Attempts up on his personal best, as you can see on the death panel, so he's really pushing on his in lap to try and see if he can jump Andrioli in the pit stop. This could be a very, very crucial lap here for the Portuguese driver as he makes his way down the back straight now, then heading in towards the hairpin now. Then he goes around the right-hander. He will go now then, using a bit of curb on the outside before making his way through the left-hander now then. Using a tad bit of curb on the outside, now heading towards the end of the second sector. Let's see if he's still keeping up this pace in the middle sector. Sana Chue in the Neo comes into the pits for her mandatory pit stop. Let's see what Mocho's middle sector now looks like. And he's still up, but he's lost a little bit of time in that middle sector. But he's still up by 39 thousandths of a second as he continues to pull away from Brandon Jackson behind, who I guess is the only reference he's going to have in terms of what his pace is like. And so coming around the second to last corner, Mocho will peel to the right, which he does, and into the pit comes the Mercedes of Michael Mocho. Now, where is he going to emerge? Will he jump Andrioli, or will Andrioli do enough to stay in front of Mocho after the pit stop? Let's not forget, Mocho will have around 2 lap fresher tyres compared to Andrioli, which could pay off for him a little bit later on in the race, even if he doesn't jump Andrioli. So, let's see now then. The Mercedes mechanics get to work on Mocho's car. Fresher tyres, a bit more electricity. How quick is the stop going to be from the Mercedes mechanics? 5.7. That is a much quicker stop than what Andrioli did, but where is Mocho going to emerge? Owen Carpenter has come into the pits meanwhile in the DS Cheetah, the man who's having a brilliant race in that car. Where is Andrioli? That is the question. Mocho is coming towards the pit exit. I'm not seeing Andrioli yet. I think he's not far behind, and I think he's jumped him, hasn't he? Yes, he has. Clear. Mocho was... He's very clear. That lap paid off for him. Maybe Gicelli got involved a little bit with Andrioli, but it doesn't matter. Mocho has jumped Andrioli, and once everybody pits, he will take the lead.
Now the chances of the championship going into the final round is really high. Now, without any problems, I don't think Andrioli will have a chance.
Have to see, of course, unless he's able to do something similar to what Mocho did on the previous stint and be able to save his tyres well to maybe attack him back later on. We will see. But whatever the case, on this occasion, Mocho has got the jump on him with around 14 and a bit laps to go in this race now then. As Mocho now does. Meanwhile, Andrioli still having trouble with Gicelli, and Gicelli looking like he's got a little bit more straight line speed. But again, Andrioli having to fend off. This might not help Andrioli. Of course, let's not forget, Gicelli is still not scheduled to pit for a couple of laps yet. So Andrioli is going to have to deal with him for quite a while as Mocho tries to gain onto the car in front of him. Another car in front of... having a car in between himself and Andrioli could really help Mocho and try and make him pull away a little bit more. The car in front of him being, I think that's Jake Tilsley in front, if I'm not mistaken, that he's trying to gain in front of. Is it? No, I think it's Prazan, in fact, isn't it? That he's trying to gain, because I think Tilsley is... It's Prazan now. Yeah, it's Prazan. So, obviously, because Ionescu is the one chasing Tilsley down behind. So, Jackson currently leads the race, but I think he's going to pit next lap, judging from the death panel at the top. Let's see. Jackson crosses the line, and yes, he will do. Jackson is coming into the pits at the end of this lap. Prazan, will he do the same? I think he might actually stay out for another lap, looking at that. Yes, he will. So, Prazan will briefly take the lead, but he might have Mocho breathing down his neck very, very soon, because he is closing in on Prazan. The gap, 0.8 seconds. Gicelli, though, could give Mocho a bit of a favour here as he tries to go onto the inside of the championship leader into the first corner. Can he get the move? Oh, no, contact! There's contact between them, both out, are they? Or has Andrioli survived because Gicelli is out of the race? But has Andrioli survived or is he out of the race?
No, he's
lost the wheel. He's out of the race. Andrioli is out. This could be a huge blow in the championship. Macho is licking his lips on this one because Andreoli, who had a chance to win the championship today, is out of the race, and a chance to win the team's championship as well may have gone down the toilet as well because, well, it looks like unless something happens to Macho, the championship is going down to the finale.
Oh wow, that was really unexpected.
Yes, indeed it was, and I would not be surprised if Decelli ends up with a grid penalty for this. Let's have a look at a replay.
Oh, Andreoli defends really hard there. He turns into him.
Oh, who would you blame on that occasion? Is it a racing incident, or is anybody getting a grid penalty on this occasion?
This is neither's fault, to be honest.
It's a racing incident, Yuri has deemed it as.
The Decelli goes for an aggressive move, but Andreoli turns into him in the corner. So
Yes, indeed. A racing incident has been deemed, so none of them will get a grid penalty for the finale. But either way, the championship has been blown wide open as a result of this.
Neither is going to get a penalty, but for Andreoli, the big mistake was to be that aggressive in defending. He really didn't need to do that.
Yeah, indeed. Andreoli should have just let him go because he knew that Decelli was coming into the pits this time by. But either way now, as mentioned, this has potentially blown the championship wide open because Macho, who looks in prime position to potentially take his third win of the season, could be right behind Andreoli going into the final race at the Bahrain outer layout. And I wonder what this might do for Jackson and Ionescu's championship. Well, I think Jackson, thanks to Andreoli being out of the race, and speaking of which, he comes into the pits, he's also going to gain massively on Andreoli. So Jackson will save his championship chances going into the final race. In terms of Ionescu, I'm not 100% sure really, because coming into this race, Ionescu was 44 points behind Andreoli. So really, he needs to finish, as you can see on the criteria that we showed earlier on, Ionescu needs to finish fourth to save his title hopes. So, and at the moment, he doesn't look like he will. He's nowhere near fourth place. So, as things stand, I think Ionescu will be the only one who will be out of the championship if it stays like this, and it will be between Andreoli, Macho, and Jackson for the championship.
Ooh,
as Demal having to wait for. Demal got held up in the pits there by, I think, was that a Porsche? It was a Porsche. It was Razan. Ionescu's been it. Tilsley and Ionescu also coming out of the pits as well. Ionescu rejoins in 7th. And all right, to give it up. Oh, this is going to be tight. Thankfully, they kept it clean on that occasion. But that was very, very close to a disaster there coming out of the pits. But Razan, I think, was that him rejoining in 10th place there after that pit stop?
Yes,
it was indeed. So despite the fact he was way down the field earlier on, he's got himself back into the points. So he's had a brilliant stint.
Yeah, he's doing quite well. There's few other Group 2 cars in the points as well, but yeah, things are going decently for Rasin, and there's possibility that he's going to gain 2 more positions here.
Indeed so, as he's going to try and use the slipstream of the Mahindra in front to get by on Marvo Koenig. It might be 3 wide here into the hairpin here as he tried to go on the inside. Can he get both of them? Oh, so close to contact, but has he got the move done? He's trying to get on the inside there of the Mahindra, and he gets the move done. What an amazing double overtake there from Mohamed Razan. Gains 2 places and passes both Kochi Chion and Marvo Koenig in the process. Impressive stuff from the Indonesian driver in the Porsche.
He's completely caught them both pants off there.
Razan into the pit, so he now hands the lead back to Michael Macho, who's got a yellow flag, and it's Parachki. Parachki's out of the race. That looks like a crash, I think, because there's no mechanical on there. It is an accident, so I wonder if he's made contact with anyone at the corner, and it looks like it's Jaswant Kumar. See as they come into the hairpin, and I think that's all on Kumar there, I think, Yuri.
Yeah, it looks... Yeah, Kumar clips him right at the apex. I think that's a 10-second for Kumar.
10-second time penalty for Jaswant Kumar,
also,
but that means that one
has set the fastest lap of the race.
Carpenter in the DS Cheetah's fastest lap, but as I was saying, as Prazan's going to rejoin in 4th, Carpenter now on the podium as a result of that, and looking like he could be getting onto Brandon Jackson for 2nd place. But as I was saying, that's one Mercedes that's been eliminated. So Macho, who currently holds on to the fastest lap, I believe, if I'm not mistaken,
Not
I think
anymore.
he's still on. Oh yeah, Carpenter has it now. So Mocho is only going to have
But
28
Mozzo is
points by the end of
responding.
it. He is responding, but at the moment he will get 25 points. Will Mocho, and I'm just trying to think in terms of where Ionescu is on the racetrack because of the fact that there's now only one of each car left in this race, with both Andrioli and Parachki now both out of the race. Ionescu is now, I think he's in 7th place, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I think he's still behind Tilsley at the moment in this race. Yes, he is. He's down in 7th, so I'm just trying to work that out in terms of the team's championship. So Mercedes will take 19 points out of Audi in the championship if it were to stay like this, because coming into this race, of course, the gap between them was 57 points. So if we do that, take away 19, that will give it 38 points. So Mercedes would save their team's title hopes if it were to stay like this, because the maximum a team can get per weekend, of course, is 48 points. So it'll be 38 points if it stay like this. It'll be slim chance, but it will be enough for Mercedes to keep their title hopes alive in the team's championship, as we just saw there that Koenig just got overtaken there for 10th place. But at the moment, Mocho in a league of his own, 11.9 seconds of the gap between him and Jackson, as both of them look like they're going to be gaining ground on Andrioli in the championship, and he does set the fastest lap again, does Mocho. So instead of 38 points, it'll be 36 points now, the gap between Mercedes and Audi in the team's championship. So at the moment, both championships will indeed be going down to the wire if it stays like this.
Yep, in terms of the team's championship, I do think Audi is too comfortable. But the drivers' championship has been blown wide open with a bit of driving by Andreoli. Of course, racing incident, but when you are leading the championship like that, it is unbottled to make a defensive move like that on a car who's about to beat.
Meanwhile, Demal has just snatched the fastest lap away from Michael Mocho, so Rafael Demal now holds on to the 2 bonus points for the fastest lap of the race. So now back to 38 points. Back to 38 points between Audi and Mercedes, as Ionescu had a bit of a moment going through into the double right-hander. But as things stand, Ionescu will be the only championship contender to be eliminated if it stays like this. He needs to finish in 4th, and, well, I think at this stage, with about 10 and a bit laps to go, that's going to be a bit of an ask for him, Yuri.
He needs some bad luck to his competitors to be able to get P4. But Kulasek and Tilsley are fighting out here, so maybe that could bring an opportunity.
Sorry, mate, that P3. I do apologise. It's P3. I was reading the championship criteria. It has to be P3 for Ionescu, because that's what Andrioli needed to do to get Ionescu out of the championship, was for him to finish in 4th. No, Ionescu needs to finish on the podium, really, to keep his title hopes alive. So, yeah, I think he's going to need to be. I think he's going to need a lot of luck either way.
Yeah, a lot of luck.
Apologies, Rob. I meant 3rd, not 4th. So, might as well put that in the stream chat in case you didn't hear me. But anyway, we now look at the battle for 5th now between Kulizek and Tilsley now. Then, of course, Ionescu is not far behind these two, so if these two can keep on battling, Ionescu could actually catch up to the pair of them. But he will also have, looks like Mohamed Razan to deal with as well in the Porsche, who's had a brilliant stint previously. The gap looks to have stabilised, meanwhile, between Mocho and Jackson. It's still roughly around 11.8 seconds. The gap between them. Maybe Mocho's just taking it easy now that he's got a big lead out in front, as it's 1.8 between Jackson and Carpenter. So Jackson may be starting to respond a bit to Carpenter's pace, as Carpenter looks to try and get onto the podium in this race. I mean, technically, he did already have a podium this season, which came at Miami, but of course that got taken away, of course, due to a time penalty for causing a collision, which in turn handed who was it? It was Ross Denholm, his first podium in Sped. As meanwhile, Rafael Demal on Team by the cameras has passed Kochi Jiong for 9th position. So Demal up into P9, as the gap now up to 11.9 now between the top two, as Mocho is just trying to bring this car to the end to give himself a really, really good chance of trying to win the title at the finale at the Bahrain Outer Layout. As meanwhile, it looks like Ionescu is under pressure from Mohamed Razan behind, as Tilsley again trying to put Kulizek under pressure down into the hairpin. Is Kulizek going to be able to fend off from Tilsley? For the moment he is. He holds on to 5th. Razan on the inside of Ionescu, but it's not going to work out, and he holds on to that position now. Then is Mocho making his way around the right-hander now then, before making his way towards the final corner to start lap 26 of the race. Razan tried to look on the inside of Ionescu, threw into the right-hander there, but it didn't quite work out. And Ionescu again able to hold on to P7 as the pair of them also at the same time trying to close up to the battling Kulizek and Tilsley in front. As Jackson now, he is now starting to get away from Carpenter, so maybe Carpenter maybe starting to settle into a little bit of a rhythm and try and hold on to this podium place. The gap now between the pair of them still 1.9 seconds, although Carpenter took a little bit out of him in the final sector, only 4 thousandths, but only took a tiny chunk out of him on that occasion, but it's kind of stabilised, I think, between the two.
Yeah, the points that the State Cheetah will get from this P3 will be massive for them, so I think they want to hold on to that no matter what.
Meanwhile, back to the battle for fifth. Tilsley now on the inside of Kulizek. Is he finally going to get the move done on the Czech driver? The answer to that is no. Kulizek holds on to that place as Ionescu is still able to fend off from Razan at this point in time. As now they come around the long, swooping right-hander now. Then we look at Jackson now then as he uses a bit of curb on the outside before he makes his way down the back straight now. Then as we look at Tilsley and Kulizek, who are once again fighting for fifth position now. Then to come out of the right-hander as we look at Ionescu and Razan behind, who are continuing to fight for 7th place. Through the final corner, through the left-hander we go, not the final corner, I don't know what I'm talking about there, but Tilsley again getting good traction compared to Kulizek coming out of the left-hander. Same goes for Razan on Ionescu down the straight, but the same story goes for the battle in front. Tilsley flicks back to the inside of Kulizek, heading down towards the hairpin. Can he get the move done on the Czech driver this time by? Trying to go a little bit later on the brakes. Can he pull the move off? No, he can't. Same goes for Razan on Ionescu. He hangs back for the moment, and no changes in places for either of those two drivers now then, as we now look at Mocho now then, he's just making his way into the final corner. Razan again trying to put Ionescu under a lot of pressure through into that right-hander as these two continue to scrap for 7th place now then as they make their way towards the left-hander now then on the racetrack. As now coming around the left-hander as Razan trying his best to get a hold of Ionescu but can't get the move done. Same goes for Tilsley in front, who's trying to get a hold of Kulizek in the Envision Virgin racing car. 11.5 seconds a gap between Mocho and Jackson. So Jackson takes a little bit off of Mocho on that occasion, but the gap I think is just too big for him to reach really. He took 4 attempts off of him last time we checked, but it's going to be too much of an ask for Jackson to close up on Mocho at the end. Meanwhile, Tilsley again on the inside of Kulizek. Can he get the move done this time? Down into the first corner. On the inside, is Tilsley going to get the move done? The answer to that is no. As meanwhile, Razan has got the move done on Ionescu. So Razan up into 7th place. He gets the move done as Ionescu's championship chances take a big hit as his championship chances continue to slip away in this race now, and as he drops down into 8th, and that puts Audi on 4 championship points in this race, so it will mean that the gap will be down to 36 points again between Mercedes and Audi. So even though Mocho hasn't got the fastest lap anymore, Ionescu dropping down to 8 means it's dropped that down to 36 points again between Audi and Mercedes in the team's championship, meaning the pair of them would fight it out for the title at the final race at the outer layer of Bahrain for, of course, the Manamar ePrix. Meanwhile, back to the battle for 5th now then. Tilsley on the inside of Kulizek as they've got Razan starting to close in as well, but again, Tilsley not able to get Kulizek at this stage as Demel is also starting to close up on them group of cars in front as well, so he could feature in that fight in front as well. And the gap now up to 12 seconds now. So Mocho probably teasing Jackson a little bit, but now he's got it back up to 12 seconds again between the pair of them now then, as Chui has a little bit of a moment through into the right-hander there, as it looks like she's going to have a pretty of a lonely race for the remainder of the race because she's lost track to Kumar, who was able to get the jump on her in the pits after their battle before the pit stop. So yeah, I think to be completely honest, I think Chui is just going to have a pretty lonely race towards the end of the race as she's down in last race as the 3 cars behind her are all out of the race. Of course, they of course being Andrioli, Dicelli, and of course Parachki being the latest retirement. We're down to 19 runners in this race. Meanwhile, between Carpenter and Jackson, it's 1.9 seconds between the pair of them. As meanwhile, Razan is now onto the back of Jake Tilsley now, then in the fight for 6th position as they make their way down the pit straight. Is Razan going to get the move done? He is indeed. Pretty simple. So up into P6 goes Mohamed Razan in the Porsche, having a brilliant second half to the race. Is Razan after a tricky first stint here at Dubai, and now he's going to try and get a hold of Wojtek Kulizek in front as Ionescu will try and catch back up to Jake Tilsley in front of him, as it's now up to 2 seconds now between Jackson and Carpenter as they both make their way down this back straight now. Then just in the distance you could just about see Aji Prazan in the Jaguar, who's looking pretty lonely in 4th position. But now we turn our attention now to the battle between Kulizek and Razan now then, both in Group 2 cars, of course. Group 2 Virgin and Group 2 Porsche at this stage. Porsche, of course, too far behind to catch up to Virgin and Nissan, as I think my headphones are starting to die on me, but I'll quickly commentate this bit before I switch my headphones, because Razan on the inside of Kulizek, can he get the move done? He thought about it, but can't get the move done. As Dumel's on the inside of Ionescu, and that's another place loss for Ionescu. Dumel up into 8th place, and now the gap will be 34 points between Audi and Mercedes in the Teams Championship. Yes, he is indeed, as I'm just going to quickly switch my headphones for the moment, as these ones that I've got in me here are currently dying. So give me a moment, guys. I'll be right back very briefly.
So while those headphones are dying, we move to watch the battle for P5, Kulasek versus Rasin. And of course Rasin has been very good in this second half of the race. And still a few laps to go. I do think he's going to get the P5, and weirdly enough Kulasek already defending there. But let's see, here comes Rasin on the move, and let's see if he can get it done.
Just in the nick of time, as managed to switch the headphones now, as Razan on the inside of Kulizek now then down towards the first corner. Can he get the move done on the Czech driver into the first corner? The answer to that is no. Kulizek, just like he did with Tilsley a little bit earlier on, not letting Razan go, and he holds on to that 5th place for the moment. We've got 6 laps to go here at the Dubai ePrix. Razan trying to go all the way around the outside of Kulizek into the turn 3 there, but didn't work out. Kulizek again just able to fend off for the time being, despite the fact he had nobody in front of him to basically slipstream to try and stay in front. So good job there from Kulizek, as he took a little bit of a wider line through into that right-hander now. Then there's Razan coming around the left-hander. He goes now then, using a bit of curb on the inside as he now comes out of the turn now. Then down the back straight we go. Can Razan get the move done on Kulizek this time? He's opting to go to the outside line, hoping the straight line speed works out for him. But it looks like Kulizek, as we've seen plenty of times, has got that Virgin set up on the straight to good effect now then. He's trying to flick back to the inside. Can Razan get the move done? No. Kulizek able to break that a little bit later and hold on to the place, as they also have invited Tilsley back into that fight for 5th position. So that battle is growing a little bit more, as you can see. There is Tilsley just behind. There is Dumal, and Ionescu looks like he's starting to fall back a bit. So yeah, I think it's safe to say with 6 laps to go, unless anything happens, I think Ionescu's championship chances are over for the 2nd year in a row.
Yeah, I think he's done and dusted for this season.
And now it will just be a case really of trying to help Audi for the Teams Championship as well, and maybe trying to help his teammate Andrioli win the driver's title next time out in Bahrain. But anyway, 5 laps to go for race leader Michael Mocho to take not only his 2nd consecutive win, but his 3rd win of the season, which will put him with more wins than Santino Andrioli this season. Anyway, through the final turn and onto the pit straight now, then we will go, as they will now, once again the battle between Razan and Kulizek once again goes into combat. It's just behind. Tilsley will have to fend off from Dumal very soon, as now Razan on the inside of Kulizek. Can he finally get the move done on the Virgin Racing driver as he goes down the inside? He tries to make the move work, but it didn't work out, as Dumal has got the move done on Tilsley there. So Dumal up into 7th place. The Group 2 guys definitely having a good race today, as they've been mixing it up with some of the Group 1 cars today, including the Jaguars and the Audis. And now it looks like Dumal will try and close up to this fight between Kulizek and Razan to see if he's got enough straight line speed compared to both of them, of course. Let's not forget, Virgin and Nissan are embroiled in a very tense fight for 5th place in the Teams Championship. So Dumal will be doing everything he can to try and help Nissan try and get back ahead of Virgin in the Teams Championship, after Virgin overtook them in the last race at of course, Fuji Speedway, as Razan opts again to go to the outside of Kulizek. Not going to work. Trying to flick back to the inside. Kulizek already defending the corner there, and as a result, he onto the place. Ionescu, meanwhile, is back on the prowl of Tilsley behind, and he finally gains a place. So Ionescu gets up into 8th place. He disposes of Tilsley. So now the gap is back down to, I think it's 36 or 34 points again. I'll have to quickly double check on that. So he's now on 4 points. Mocha will get 25 points as there's 4 laps to go. So 57 take 19, 36 points will be the gap. So 38 points will be the gap. I apologise. So yeah, 38 points so far will be the gap between Audi and Mercedes. But either way, the Teams Championship is looking like it's going to go down to the final race in Bahrain, although Mercedes will need a lot of luck to try and win it, given that they'll need both cars to finish if they want to try and win that championship. A little bit similar to in real life what Red Bull had to do against Mercedes last year in the real life Formula 1 season. But back to the OC, because real life is not important. As now we come down the straight, as now we look at Razan now, then who's trying to go onto the inside of Wojtek Kulizek again. Can he get the move done this time by into the first corner as Demel is looking on? Meanwhile, Tilsley trying to get back at Ionescu into the first corner, but again, Razan not able to get the move done, and Ionescu able to hold off Tilsley into the first corner there and holds on to 8th place for the time being now as they make their way around Lawson right-hander. Look at this from Razan, around the outside he goes. He didn't want to wait too long, and that is an amazing move from the Indonesian driver.
Move.
Place. He's been an overtake machine today as Mohamed Razan. He did a double overtake earlier on, and he's just done an incredible move around the outside of Kulizek, a man who people have had trouble trying to pass today. Incredible.
He saw the opportunity and went for it. That was brilliant for him.
Indeed so, and well, he's just been a very good overtaker today. And, well, it looks like 5th place is going to go to him. And now Kulizek will have his mirrors full of Rafael Demal, who he'll try and fend off, given, as mentioned earlier, Virgin and Nissan are embroiled in a very tense fight for 5th in the team's championship. As Ionescu, despite overtaking Tilsley wants that 8th place back off of him down that back straight now. Then as they now come down the straight, making their way down the straight we go now then. Is Demal going to try and get it back on the inside? Is Demal going to get the move done on Kulizek? Down the inside he goes. Nope. He doesn't get the move done. Kulizek breaks out a little bit later. Same goes with the fight between Ionescu and Tilsley again down that straight. As Demal will try and see if he can try and line up Kulizek for a pass down into turn 1 now then. As the gap between Mocho and Jackson has gone up to around 13.2 seconds now then. Through the right-hander we go. 3 laps to go for race leader Michael Mocho here at the Dubai ePrix as they now make their way around to the right-hander now then, as once again, Demal trying to find a way through on Kulizek through the left-hander, not going to work out, so he's going to have to hang back for the moment as they make their way around the long, swooping left-hander. We will go now then, up towards the second to last corner. They both go on the track as Demal will try everything he can to try and get a run on Kulizek down into the first corner. Ionescu looks like he's got a bit of a gap to Tilsley, but Tilsley could still get him back by closing in on him into the final corner now then. So out of the final turn, onto the pit straight. Will Demal get the move done on Kulizek this time by as Razan continues to pull away from this lot now then after he got through. He's going to look to the inside. Is Demal going to get the move done on Kulizek down into the first corner? Can Tilsley retake Ionescu down into the first corner? Meanwhile, down the inside goes Demal, and he's got the move done up into P6. Goes Rafael Demal as Ionescu just able to fend off from Tilsley and holds on again to that 8th position. As meanwhile, just behind, Aviard trying to attack Koenig for P12, and Koenig just able to hold on to that 12th position for the meantime. Just trying to see what that...
Some of the Group 1 cars have had absolute howlers this time around.
Yes, indeed. Of course, we saw Parachki earlier on really struggling with pace. Same with Marvo Koenig as well in the BMW I Andretti today. And you could say, in effect, as well with Ionescu, who seems to be struggling in this second half of the race, really. Hence why he's fending off 8th place from Tilsley, who, speaking of which, is trying to get back on the inside of them. As at the same time, both of them are starting to close in again onto Wojtek Kulizek in front. Tilsley tries to have a go on the inside, but Ionescu just able to hold on to that 8th position. And as both he and Tilsley do their best to try and close up onto Wojtek Kulizek just in front now then, as Jackson comes around the second to last corner, as Mocho starts the penultimate lap of the race, as Aviard has finally got the move done on Marvo Koenig meanwhile, and he's up into 12th place in the Porsche, although it looks like only one of the Porsches is going to get points today, and that is in the form of Mr. Overtake Man himself, Mohamed Razan today, who's up in 5th position, as meanwhile Kumar trying to attack Kwan, who's had a bit of a shocking race despite having a decent qualifying earlier on, and it looks like Kumar is trying to see if he can put Kwan back into the Neo sandwich that he was in earlier on in the race, but Kwan looks like he's just going to hold on. Yes, let's not forget Kwan does have of course, Kumar does have the 10-second time penalty, of course, so even if he did get by on Kwan, it won't mean anything, as he will drop back behind him again as a result. What would that mean between him and Choi, meanwhile? Because the last time we checked, it was near enough 10 seconds between the pair of them. But anyway, hold that thought, because Tilsley is once again attacking Ionescu for 8th place into the first corner, but again can't get the move done. Nearly close to contact between the pair of them, but Ionescu just able to fend off 8th place again as they both try and close it onto Wojtek Kulizek just in front now. Then Tilsley tried to hang it around the outside of Ionescu, but wasn't fully committed, and Ionescu having a little bit of a gap for the meantime as he looks to try and close in onto Wojtek Kulizek right in front now then, as they both try and gain some places, especially for Ionescu, who wants to try and ease the pain of Mercedes taking a huge chunk out of them in the team's championship, as Carpenter's been closing back in onto Jackson. Meanwhile, in fact, the gap is under a second between Jackson and Carpenter. So could Carpenter perhaps get second by the end of the race, or is it going to be too much of an ask for the Irishman? Either way, Carpenter has had a brilliant race here tonight, here at Dubai. But meanwhile, we look now at Michael Macho, who's just coming up towards the final corner now then, in the Mercedes EQ Formula E team car, as he makes his way out of the final turn, and Michael Macho is going to start the final lap of the race here at the Dubai Autodrome. A perfect race for Michael Macho. He didn't get the best of starts to the race, let's not forget. He got, as both of the Mercedes got jumped by Santino Andreoli at the start, and briefly by Brandon Jackson, but he got by him within a couple of laps. He was closing on him rapidly every lap before the mandatory pit stops, and was able to get the jump on Andreoli in the pit stops, even before Andreoli had his crash with Dominic DiCelli a little bit later on. And he's just drove the perfect race ever since, and as long as there's no mistakes that goes on in his final lap, he's looking good to get his third victory of the season, and as a result, it will give him a really good shout at winning the Drivers' Championship in 2 weeks' time at the Manamar ePrix at the Bahrain Outer Layout. So Macho, really, in these last couple of races, has really got himself back in the title fight. Jackson will also save his championship chances as well, being in second place. As coming into this race, of course, he was 37 points back behind. He was 37 points behind Andreoli going into this race, but with him in second place, providing he can hold on to Carpenter, of course, he will be 19 points behind Andreoli. It will still be a bit of an ask for Jackson, but at least he will keep his slim title hopes alive going into the final race. So there'll be 3 championship contenders left going into the last race, with Macho being the most notable one, given he'll be a lot more closer to Andreoli in the championship, as it looks like Jackson is going to hold off from Carpenter, despite the fact that Carpenter is 0.5 seconds back from him. But anyway, here comes Michael Macho now then. He's just coming around the third to last corner for the 34th and final time. He's just drove the brilliant race he needed to win today to save his championship hopes, and he's done absolutely that. He really wants to be back in the top class next season. He comes around the final corner for the 34th and final time for the second race in a row. It is going to be Michael Macho who wins the Dubai ePrix here at the Dubai Autodrome. And with Andreoli out of the race, it means that the Drivers' Championship and the Team's Championship will be going down to the wire at Manamar. Jackson is just going to hold off Carpenter to finish in second place to save his championship hopes. Carpenter will finish in third. Prazan will cross the line in fourth. A good day for Carpenter. He gets his first podium of the season after being robbed at Miami a few races ago. Prazan in fourth. Razan, a brilliant race from him today. Some brilliant overtakes from him. He will cross the line in fifth. Some good points for Porsche today, even though they are too far back from both Virgin and Nissan in the championship. Razan fifth. Dumal will ensure Nissan close in a bit on Virgin in sixth. Kulazak is going to cross the line in seventh, just holding off both Ionescu and Tilsley, who finished eighth and ninth. And Kochi Cheong is going to pick up a point in 10th place in the Mahindra. A good race from him today. Ross Denholm will cross the line in 11th place. 12th place going to Leighton Aviard. 13th for Marvo Koenig. 14th going to Jacob Tobler in the second Mahindra. 15th going to Alex Broster. Not exactly the race he wanted today. Coach Cheon, after scoring points last time out at that chaotic race in Fuji, he's going to pick up no points on this occasion. It's back to normality for him, I'm afraid. He's going to finish 16th place today, so P16 going the way to Kochon Cheong, as his brother Kochi scores points today in the Mahindra, as Jaswant Kumar across the line in 17th on the road, but it looks like he's going to drop back to in at least 18th, because unseen by the cameras he did overtake Kwan, but he is going to drop back behind Kwan, so he drops to 18th at least, so Kwan gains 17th, and it looks like he's going to stay 18th, because I think Sana Choi is too far back behind both Kwan and Kumar to take full advantage. Kumar was around 2.8 seconds ahead of Kwan at the finish. Choi is just coming around the final corner now then. What's the gap between her and Kwan at the end? It is 23.2 seconds. So, yeah, Kumar only drops down to 18 thanks to his 10-second time penalty for causing the crash with Parachki earlier on. But either way, Michael Macho takes his third win of the season and has brought himself right into the title fight going into the final race. Macho is your winner. Jackson second, Carpenter in third, with Prazan fourth, Razan in fifth, Demal in sixth, Kulazek seventh, with Ionescu in eighth, Tilsley in ninth, Kochi Cheong in 10th, with Denholm in 11th, Aviard 12th, Koenig 13th, Tobler 14th, Boaster in 15th, Kochon Chiang in 16th, with Kumar 17th, was 17th on the road but drops down to 18th, meaning that Kwan takes 17th in the end. Sona Chue, the last of the finishers, in 19th, with Ennis Parachki, Dominic Ticelli, and Santino Andreoli, the only 3 drivers who have not finished the race. Andreoli being the most notable one, given the championship has now been blown wide open. Rafael Demal takes the 2 bonus points for the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 46.541, so that will definitely help them in their fight with Virgin in the team's championship. But there you have it. That has been it from the Dubai Prix, and well, we've got a title decider on our hands at Bahrain, Yuri.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting end to the Formula E season here.
Indeed so, and I can't wait for that. Of course, the final round of the 2021 Formula E Championship will be in 2 weeks' time at the Manamar Prix at the Bahrain Outer Layout, where Andreoli, Michael Mocho, and of course Brandon Jackson will duke it out to win the 2021 Formula E title, and it's going to be very exciting indeed. Of course, don't forget this week as well, we of course have F2 and top class action. Of course, we've got the F2 qualifying session in just over 2 hours time over at Indianapolis, where if Martins takes pole position, of course, then he'll have a slim chance of winning the F2 title tomorrow in the race, but he'll need to take pole position if he wants to give himself the chance. Otherwise, the driver's title will go down to the wire. Of course, the top class will be at Bahrain, coincidentally, where the finale is happening for Formula E this week for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Of course, they'll be using the full layout, all the top class, rather than the outer layout, which is what the Formula E is using. But yeah, that is it then, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Of course, World Champ Car will be on next Monday for their penultimate race, where Bruno de Barros will have another chance to win the driver's title, and Team Penske will have their best chance yet to wrap up the first ever World Champ Car Teams title. So look forward to that. But until then, that has been it. I hope you have enjoyed it. So thank you all for watching. I'm JW97. He's been Yuri, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.